In this video, we're going to be doing something a little different. Instead of working on the car today, we're going to take a look back at all the cars of significance I've owned since the very beginning. So this is going to be a little different. I think it's going to be pretty cool. I think you're going to like it. And there might even be a few things that you don't like what you see that you find out later on. So check it out. Hope you enjoy. So here we are, the first car I ever owned. It was actually a vehicle. We went down to Arkansas and bought it when we were visiting my grandparents. And my sister, she's a year and a half older than me, so I kind of started out as her car and our car, and then I kind of took over it, if you will, as I got older, started doing more and more on it. But 1974 is what it is, a gold Duster, and we ended up buying this back in the, I say, mid to late 80s, right? And it was a 318 car. And originally it had hubcaps, but ended up getting these rally wheels to put on there. And you know, I didn't even know about the proper paint back then, so I ended up spray painting them gray versus, you know, an argent silver, so they're a little off color. But it was a pretty solid car. It was pretty fun. So again, it had a 318, ended up putting a dual exhaust on it. And it was a 2-barrel car, so swapped it out to a 340 manifold and a 4-barrel thermal quad on it. And it was a fun car, ran good. And one of my buddies at the time, he was pretty good in body shop. So we were friends, and we ended up painting the car purple. So always loved plum crazy and violet, and thought it'd be fun to paint the Duster purple. So as you can see on the back, I ended up swapping out the rear end in it, and it had like a 7 1/4 in it, and put an 8 3/4 in it. And at the time, I only had these plain steel wheels that were a larger bolt pattern, so that's why they don't match for the time being. But yeah, so I thought it looked pretty cool. I mean, it was a pretty rough paint job. It was all done, you know, again in a garage, pretty quick work. And then I ended up getting a 360 engine. This came out of my uncle's Ram Charger, actually. So it was like I want to say a late 70s 360. Ended up getting 340 heads, the X heads, and basically building this one. It was pretty mild, just, you know, standard stroke, 30 over, 10.5 to 1 pistons. LD 340 intake, had a good intake in this newer Holly design, and so it was pretty mild. It was probably, you know, 300-ish horsepower, and put that in the Duster. And here you can see the Duster with some rally wheels that I had widened, and looked pretty good. Painted those black, and I had a pretty good stance to it on those 275 60 15s in the back. Had a pretty good rake, and drove that around for quite a bit. And then after a while, ended up getting into an accident with it, and we ended up having to put like a quarter panel on it. And at that time, decided to sand it all down. I was kind of done with the purple after a few years. You know, I always wanted to paint it like the bright Mopar yellow, like citron yellow, curious yellow, and so we ended up painting it again. And man, I really liked this. This was so bright. It was really cool, something pretty unique. But I didn't have it very long after this. Unfortunately, the car had an electrical fire. I had moved the battery to the trunk, and something lit off one night. Must have had a short in one of the battery cables. Must have hit the ground against the frame and ended up starting an electrical fire in the back of the car. So, and pretty much totaled it. Unfortunately, that was a rough one, a rough patch to go through, that's for sure. I put a lot of time into it, and thankfully the drivetrain and engine was fine. So I yanked all that out of the Duster, and then I found a 1971 Dodge Dart. This is kind of a similar car to what the Duster was. It was a 318 car, so I ended up pulling the entire drivetrain out of it. This was originally a red car, and for some reason it was like spray painted black. I heard some story that it was actually stolen and recovered. I'm not sure, but I thought it was a pretty solid car, and I thought it would look pretty good once did some body work on it, put my drivetrain in it. So here we are. I sanded it all down. You can see a lot of the original red, and put fiberglass fenders on it. I don't exactly remember why I swapped out to glass fenders. I don't know if the steel ones had some issues or not. Maybe they did, or maybe I was just trying to lighten it up. I don't recall exactly, but they took a little bit of body work to get them fitting pretty good. But after we did, spray painted it just bright red basically, and you can see here it has the police wheels in the back, the 15 inches, and yeah, it looked really good. It was a fun car, so I drove that for quite a few years. And here's a picture of the engine bay, that same 360. Again, now I switched over to the M1 intake. You can see a single plane in there, and had that Moroso air cleaner, right? I'm sure that was a real popular one back in the day. And painted the headers white, which that didn't last long. And let's see, yeah, the engine bay was black. Yeah, you can give me some slack for that, but I wasn't gonna at that time rip everything out of there. That wasn't a big concern of mine, so I left the engine bay black. And yeah, it was a fun car, so I drove that for quite a while. And then at one point, through a friend, a 70 Dodge Challenger came up for sale, and I'd always wanted an E-body, and you know, this one, it was a pretty cool car. In 1970, it was a 3D3 4-speed RT car, and one thing I really liked about it was the color. It was actually a vitamin C car, which I love that color. It's like one of my favorite high impact colors. But it was rough. I mean, it was completely stripped out. All the drivetrain was out of it, and it needed a bunch of metal work, and I didn't have really any experience in metal work, but bought it anyway. Sold the Duster, or the Dart rather, and a bunch of other stuff I had, trying to get enough money for this thing, and I did. And then I started working on it, you know, started sanding it down and put quarters on it. But like the further I went, like the more work I found I needed. Like it needed a bunch of metal work in the around the windows, the front and rear, and just I wasn't real happy with the way the quarters came out. Kind of felt overwhelmed on this project. You know, I was still pretty young at the time, and this was like early 90s, and yeah, I just, you know, graduated high school or a few years back and bought it in right after I moved out, and when I was 25. So yeah, it kind of sat for quite a while. You know, again, I think I just bit off a little more than what I could chew at the time, or yeah, just kind of overwhelmed with it. So after a while, I ended up selling it. But before I did, I should say, I ended up buying this brand new Dodge Ram. I want to say this was in '94 as well, and this was a 3/4 ton with a V10. I really wanted the V10 in the Ram pickup, and to do that, you had to get the 3/4 tin. So shortly thereafter, upgraded the tires on it, put some bigger tires on it. I believe these were 295s. So it was a really tough truck, really cool, but man, was it terrible on gas. And you know, it didn't have a lot of interior space, obviously, a standard cab, but it was a really good looking truck, really nice. And shortly thereafter, a few years later, I decided I wanted something with a little more interior room. So I sold the Ram and bought this Chevy Tahoe. So I really liked this truck. It was a great truck, got great mileage, had great power, and had the tan leather interior, and it was really sharp, really sharp. So that was a fun one. So I actually, as soon as I bought that, I had just gotten laid off from my job, and I had found a new job that was starting in like 3 weeks. So I packed my bags up, loaded up my Tahoe, and went out west on a camping fishing trip. And man, it was a great time. There was really good memories in that thing. It was a great thing, great truck. Had no issues with it, problem free, and drove that for quite a while. And then I ended up getting a motorcycle. So I ended up buying this Suzuki Gsxr. This is actually my second one. My first one was a couple years before, a 600, and this was a 750. And yeah, a guy I used to work with, a couple of guys I used to work with, they were into motorcycles, sport bikes, so kind of influenced me there to try that, and it was a lot of fun. And this one here was a pretty fun time there, and I brought it inside the house during the winters. Would keep it off the side in the kitchen there, actually kind of funny on the indoors. So It's always a good conversations piece when you have your motorcycle inside your house. But and then things really took a different turn where you might not be expecting. In the late 90s, early 2000s, I was really into watching the World Rally Racing, the WRC. I just thought it was really exciting, really cool watching these cars go flying on these dirt roads, through the woods and forests, even racing on snow, studded tires. Just, man, it looked like so much fun. And watching, Colin McRae drive the Subarus. And then when Subaru decided to bring the WRX to America for the first time in 2002, I thought, that could be a really fun car. So I ended up selling my truck and bought a 2002 WRX wagon. And, right out of the box, it was definitely lacking a little bit of power. So I ended up putting a bigger turbo on it, bigger injectors, ended up doing a full exhaust, getting rid of all the catalytic converters. My buddy had a shop not too far from me, and we ended up dyno tuning it. And it made like mid 200 to the wheels. It was roughly, low, 320, 330 at the crank. So it was a fun car. It was really quick for what it was. I ended up putting new suspension on it, new Coney adjustable struts, swapped out the wheels to what you see here, and even did some open track days with it. And it was just a lot of fun car. I mean, pretty much did everything that you'd want it to do. And plus, it was all-wheel drive, had great traction. Took it to Ubley Dragway. You can see a picture of it here. And it was running high 12s, and it was just fun. It had great brakes, handled, great acceleration, good power, and a lightweight little body. And then a couple years later, though, when Mitsubishi brought the Evolution to the States, I really wanted that car. It was a lot more power from the factory in stock form, and just a really stout engine. It was the 4G63, the straight inline 4, and iron block, just a really robust engine. And I immediately, again, though it only had like 270 horsepower factory, and that wasn't enough, so I immediately started swapping turbos on it and ended up building the motor, putting KW coilovers on it, forged wheels, and we got it up to 460 horsepower to the wheels, this thing. And it was a lot of fun, so much fun. Again, road racing, autocrossing it. I would drive it anywhere. And here's a picture of the engine bay. And ended up doing a lot of work on the engine myself and my friends. We built intercooler piping, built intercooler for it. Did a lot of porting of the exhaust manifold, turbine, intake, throttle body, and made a little mini battery kit for it. So it was pretty fun. But the downside was just really started exceeding the limits of the stock drivetrain. Ended up breaking transmissions, going through diffs, and I kind of got burnt out on it. After a while, I just kind of got fed up and sold it, and ended up buying this Subaru Forester. So again, this one wasn't stock. It had basically an STI swap. So basically, a bigger turbo, injectors and tune and exhaust, STI wheels. And it was really fun. It was a lot less power, but it was just reliable. Drove that for quite a few years until one day, commuting to work, a deer ran out in front of me and just, T-boned the thing, and it rolled right over the hood and windshield. Literally peeled up the hood, and I couldn't see anything. It was dark out. Hit the brakes, came to a stop, thankfully, and just right in the road without anything worse. And but yeah, they ended up totaling the vehicle, and that was a big bummer. But that led me to my next car, the Mustang GT with the Coyote. This was a really sweet car. I really enjoyed it. It was fun, but completely different from what I was used to. A bigger, heavier car, rear-wheel drive, but more power. Had the 6-speed, had the 373 gear in it. I love the blue color, tinted windows. It was a fun car. Drove it for a while, but it just didn't really have the space that I was wanting. I've always been into bikes and cycling, and kind of needed more interior space, and ended up buying this WRX STI and that was fun. I kept this one perfectly stock, though. I just wanted a fun car to drive. I didn't want to have to work on a car again. I kind of got burnt out on any car projects. And then after that, I ended up buying the Focus RS when Ford decided to build or bring the Focus RS to America. This was a really fun car. I loved it. I ordered this one, bought it brand new, bought the gray, and yeah, it was just a great little car, fun, and I really enjoyed it. You know, again, sort of did everything well, had good power, a lot of fun to drive, great handling, great transmission. I left it stock. Again, I was kind of at that stage still kind of burnt out, but after a while of not having any true car projects though, the itch came back, and you know, I was thinking, man, it'd be fun to get back into an old car again. And plus, just seeing what the technology and the companies have done with getting a lot of the older cars to handle and brake better, I'm like, you know, that would be something I think I would really enjoy. So I ended up started looking. It took a while. I really wanted an e-body. I wanted either a Cuda or a Challenger. I really wanted you know, a manual car, a real Cuda or a RT Challenger, and that's what kind of led me to what I have now. So I have a lot of more projects planned, and I've really been enjoying working on this one. So the plan is to, again, yeah, keep this one forever though. I really do like it. It really ticks all the boxes for me, and I just want to, you know, one of the next projects I want to do is get the car to handle a little bit better, because there's no sway bars or nothing on it right now, and it's not exactly what I would call fun to drive. I enjoy driving it. It's got a lot of power in that department, but I definitely want to handle and brake better, because it's, you know, four-wheel drums as well, or so manual brakes, and so there's some projects there down the road I want to do, and we'll make some videos of that in the future. So, but anyway, that's my car history. I thought you guys might enjoy it. So I'd love to hear some of you guys' first cars, maybe your favorite cars, and what you think of what I've owned in the past. And I know you probably didn't expect seeing the imports, but they were fun. You know, I kind of embrace all cars, but I do love my Mopars, that's for sure. So, alright, well, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and please like, subscribe if you haven't. I'll see you guys next time.